we move on, we can get to age of the Earth, and this is just arguments for a young Earth that go beyond the radiometric dating. One is the accumulation of sodium or salt in the oceans. The other is accumulation of sediment on the ocean floor. 3 would be rates of erosion. 4 would be evidence from carbon-14 dating.
Again, what we're looking at here are rates of processes that might sort of give us some constraints on timescales of various geological processes.
On an upper limit.
And an upper limit, yeah, that's very important to say, because very often these processes don't give us an actual age. What they do is they give us some upper constraint on what the age might be.
Okay.
So, for example, with the accumulation of sodium in salt in the oceans, we can quantify the various processes that are transporting salt into the oceans. We think something like 450 million tons of sodium go into the oceans every year. Okay. Only about a quarter or just over a quarter of that sodium leaves the oceans. There are some processes that remove salt from the oceans, deposition on the sea floor and sea spray that lands up back on the continents and things of this kind. But it's only about a quarter of the sodium that goes in. So you can then sort of work out, if the present day rates of sodium inputs and outputs have always been the same, you can then sort of extrapolate backwards and say how old would the oceans be, or at least when would the oceans have been completely fresh water.
Right.
And it turns out that that's about 42 million years, which sounds a long time, but the oceans are meant to be billions of years old. So this is a very long way from the conventional age.
So we would expect to see much saltier oceans if the Earth's oceans were as old as a conventional view of the age of the Earth would have them be. We would expect to see much saltier oceans. And the fact that we don't means that conventional view, or would be an argument against a conventional view.
Yes, and even if you're extremely generous and you try to maximize the removal rates and minimize the input rates of salt into the ocean, it's still nowhere near enough. It's about 50 times, the ocean would be 50 times younger than the conventional age of the oceans. Right.
Yeah. Okay. And then accumulation of sediment on the ocean floor?
Well, again, it's a very similar argument in that we can estimate how much sediment is being deposited on the ocean floor. We know that there are some processes that remove sediment from the ocean. For example, some sediment will be taken down on subducting ocean plates and recycled into the Earth's interior. So some material is left, is able to leave the oceans. We also know, what the average thickness of the ocean sediments is. And so putting all of that together, you can sort of, again, work out what are the constraints on the age of the oceans based on accumulation of sediment. And again, it's much, much less than the
conventional
purported age.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with erosions on continents.
Yeah. So you could have filled the oceans full of sediments multiple times over during the 3.5 billion years that the oceans are meant to have been in existence.
What about, so a third one would be rates of erosion, and that would have to be with erosion on land, in which I would assume the argument would be similar to what you just said.
It's very similar.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, we can measure erosion rates, and even if we assume that erosion rates today are exceptionally high, because of the activity of humans,
still wouldn't be enough.
Agriculture. Again, even if you adjust for that, it's not enough.
Right.
You can reduce the continents down to sea level, multiple times over in the age of the Earth. Yeah.
And then the last one, carbon-14 dating.
Carbon-14 has a very short half-life. It's 5,730 years. After about 10 half-lives, there shouldn't really be a measurable amount of carbon-14 left in fossil materials. And yet when we look at ancient fossil samples, samples of coal, even ancient diamonds, we find measurable amounts of carbon-14.
And in diamonds, it would be harder to make the case that there was contamination.
Sure, because the diamonds are so hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for listening. Credible Faith is a global missions-minded apologetics ministry with content available in 7 different languages across 7 websites: German, Russian, Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and English. If you would like to support the global apologetics work of Credible Faith, go to crediblefaith.org and click on the donate icon. If you would like me to give an apologetics workshop or participate in a debate at your university, or if you would like me to give a Great Commission missions conference or apologetics conference at your church, get in touch with me through the Contact Us section of the Credible Faith website. You can also submit a request through the website to get Credible Faith's monthly email. If you are a native speaker of Russian, German, Italian, French, Spanish, or Portuguese, and if you notice that an essay from the English website is not available on the Credible Faith website for your language, feel free to get in touch with me about translating the essay, and I would read through your translated material for quality control and the desire to see content from the essay made available in your language. Thank you for listening, and have a great night.